Story number 8. I'm a paramedic, and one morning we were dispatched to help an elderly woman, probably in her 70s, who was experiencing serious heart issues. She was in compensated shock due to an extremely low heart rate, and her condition quickly worsened as we moved her from her home to the ambulance. We ended up pacing her heart, and thankfully she stabilized during the hour-long trip to the hospital. Fast forward about 16 hours later, we get called to the scene of a rollover car crash. There was only one person in the vehicle, a man, unconscious, trapped in an overturned car off the side of the road. He wasn't breathing, so we intubated him and rushed him to the hospital. As we were nearing the hospital, about 30 miles away, he went into traumatic cardiac arrest. Despite our efforts, he was pronounced dead on arrival. While in transit, we searched for his ID and found his wallet. Inside was a badge. He was a retired police officer. Something clicked. Earlier that day, the woman we treated had mentioned her husband was a retired officer. Turns out he had been on his way to see his wife at the hospital, but had stopped at a bar before the drive. It wasn't technically part of my job, but I accompanied the nurse to break the news to the woman. She thanked me with so much sincerity for being there for her and her husband both times, on the same heartbreaking day. Story number 9. In primary school, we had a World War I memorial lesson, and we were asked if anyone had any relatives who fought at the time. My friend brought in a picture of his great-great-grandfather with his wife. A girl also brought in a picture of her great-great-grandfather with his wife. The teacher said they looked similar. She put them side by side and looked shocked. We gathered around, and it was the same man who had kept his 2 wives a secret. Both had been married privately. They were cousins and didn't know.
Story number 10. I have a co-worker named Mark, a genuinely great guy, and he's married to an equally wonderful woman named Laura. Long before she even met Mark, doctors had told Laura that she wouldn't be able to get pregnant naturally because of issues with her ovaries and fallopian tubes. Over time, she accepted it, and when she and Mark got together, they both agreed that a life without children would be just fine. They got married and spent 12 happy years together. They started off with very little, but as the years went by, their careers took off and they built a comfortable life. Eventually, they reached a point where they could finally splurge on something they had always wanted, a shiny new sports car straight off the lot. It was the first brand new car they had ever owned, and it felt like a symbol of how far they had come. At this point, Mark and Laura were in their early 40s, thinking they would just enjoy the ride toward retirement. But about 6 months after buying the car, winter rolled in, and Laura caught a stubborn case of the flu. She felt drained, nauseous, and just not herself. After nearly 3 weeks of feeling that way, she went to the doctor. The doctor asked if there was any chance she could be pregnant. Laura laughed and said she had been married for 12 years and never even had a pregnancy scare. Every doctor she had seen told her it just was not going to happen, but the doctor said, "Just humor me and take a urine test so we can rule it out." Wanting to figure out what was really going on, Laura agreed, and sure enough, the test came back positive. She was pregnant. So there they were, in their 40s, after more than a decade of life as a couple, now expecting a baby. Once the shock wore off, they got pretty excited. They had to sell the sports car, though. 2 seats were not going to work anymore. A few months later, their son Leo was born, healthy and happy, just like any other baby. Now they are a family of 3. Leo just finished his first year of high school. He is a great kid and really smart. Life has a funny way of surprising you when you least expect it. Story number 11. It's 1991. I'm 19. Just signed the lease for my very first apartment, living on my own. I've also just received the first paycheck from my new job. Feeling proud and grown up, I decide to deposit it at an ATM, something I'd never done before, since I'd always gone inside the bank. 2 weeks later, my bank statement arrives in the mail. I open it and freeze. My account shows a balance of just $1.87. That's way off. I've been careful with my spending and should have at least $200 left. Panic sets in. I realize I came within a couple dollars of bouncing my first rent check. As I reach for the phone to call the bank, it rings. On the other end is the police. They ask if my ATM card has been stolen. I check my wallet and realize it's gone. Since I'd been getting cash tips at work, at a theater pub, I hadn't used the card much, so I hadn't noticed it missing. I tell the officer I was about to call them anyway because $200 had disappeared from my account. The officer says, "Well, we've got your card and your $200. You can come pick them up at the station." I'm confused. How do they have both my card and the cash? I head to the police station, still trying to make sense of it. A detective explains what happened. Someone, let's call him Bob, pulled up to use the ATM and saw a man acting oddly. The guy seemed to be dodging the camera, leaning from side to side. Then he jumped into a car and sped away. Bob stepped up to the machine, inserted his own card, but it popped back out. He tried again, and this time $200 came out. Then another card popped out. It was mine. Turns out the guy had accidentally left my card in the machine. Bob had unknowingly withdrawn money from my account, not his own. Realizing what happened, he took the card and the money straight to the police and reported it. The detective gives me the description of the suspect. A man about 5'7", brown hair, wearing round gold-rimmed glasses. I blink and say, "So, about my height, my hair color, and glasses like mine?" That's when it hits me. Bob was describing me. I'd never used an ATM to deposit a check before. I'd been moving around following the on-screen instructions, filling out the envelope, entering the numbers. Then I'd forgotten to take my card out. I just walked away. And I drove off quickly, not because I was fleeing, but because I was 19 and drove like that all the time. I didn't confess to the detective that I was the suspect. I just thanked him, took my money and card, and left. Somewhere in a box at home, I still have the police report, where I'm listed as both the victim and the suspect in my own case. If you like real stories like this, don't forget to subscribe to Life Posted channel.